I would like to start with the big picture and ask the why. From a global perspective, why does the world need to reduce its carbon footprint, or GHG emission in general? Because the uncomfortable reality is the Earth's surface temperature is still rising and rising fast. As of current NASA estimates, the planet has already warmed by approximately 1.36 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. If current policies are continued, projections indicate that the world could warm by 3 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. I can't imagine what a 3-degree world would look like, but we need not look too far ahead. We know of and have experienced extreme weather events. We all know coastal cities will be submerged, displacing millions. Corals will die. We will have food shortage, among others. More frequent and intense heat waves could make outdoor work, like in agriculture and construction, hazardous. As wet bulb temperatures approach or exceed 35 degrees, the human body's ability to cool itself through sweating becomes compromised, greatly increasing the risk of heat stroke even in those who are young and healthy. All in all, this would bring debilitating impacts to people, the planet, and economies. According to UNEP's Emissions Gap Report, delivering on all unconditional and conditional pledges by 2030 lowers the estimate to 2.5 degrees, with the additional fulfillment of all net zero pledges bringing it to 2 degrees. This is the best case scenario, hinging on net zero pledges which remain highly uncertain as of the moment. Even in this most optimistic scenario, the chance of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees is only 14%. We are due to update our NDCs this year, and a failure to increase ambition in these new NDCs and start delivering immediately would put the world on course for a temperature increase of 2.6 to 3.1 degrees over the course of this century. This is according to the latest Emissions Gap Report. Here are the numbers if we want to limit to 1.5. So 42% reduction in overall emission by 2030 and 57% reduction by 2035. If we aim for the lower goal of 2 degrees, that would entail 28% reduction by 2030 and 37% by 2035, which is just around the corner. Therefore, we cannot afford for these net zero pledges to be empty words. Much is at stake, especially for a country like ours, which has been determined as one of the most vulnerable to climate change. Against the backdrop of an ever-increasing population, therefore increasing energy demand, net zero is the only way to stabilize global temperatures. Achieving net zero means that for every ton of greenhouse gas emission emitted, an equivalent amount is either absorbed or offset. Naturally, the first step is to reduce carbon emissions. This is where energy efficiency comes in. According to the International Energy Agency, or IEA, energy efficiency, or EE, is a critical component of net zero, and achieving global energy goals could see around 40% of the necessary reduction in carbon emissions coming from improvements in energy efficiency. That is why energy efficiency is now regarded as the first fuel. We in PE2 support and believe this, that energy efficiency should be mainstreamed as the world's first fuel in the main route to net zero, because it is the cheapest and fastest way to reduce our kilowatt demand and curb emissions. Yes, in today's world, energy efficiency is no longer a choice, but a responsibility. The good news is, energy efficiency is one of the most practical and impactful ways we can make a difference. Let's start by defining what energy efficiency means. It's not about cutting back or making sacrifices. It's about using energy smarter. It's about getting the same results, whether lighting our homes, powering our businesses, or running our industries with less energy input. This means lowering costs, reducing waste, and ultimately conserving our planet's resources. Which brings me to our own country. Us saving energy has more to do with energy security than with reducing global emissions. We all know how much we contribute to the global emissions. With our ever precarious resources, all the more we need to use energy efficiently. This reduces the need to import energy from other countries, therefore making us less vulnerable to supply disruptions. Energy efficiency is the least cost and fastest solution that we propose. While we aspire to shift to renewables as much and as fast as possible, challenges with regards to the grid and other issues is currently a huge barrier. So while we are expanding the grid, we should do energy efficiency, as we don't have to rely on the grid to implement it. In fact, PE alleviates the strain on the grid, especially during peak demand. During peak demand. As our President Alex Ablaza says, peak demand should be shaved through EE and other means before building new power plants. The more we save, the less energy we need to produce. Let me borrow a slide from Alex Ablaza detailing the economic and development impacts of Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act, or RA 11285, which, if fully implemented, is poised to give us 182 million tons of oil equivalent reduction through 2040. So I'd like to highlight here in the middle part under energy security, 45,900 megawatts deferred energy infrastructure capital requirements for energy production, transmission, and distribution. So it's like having a virtual power plant. Like what I said earlier, the less energy we use, the less power plants we need to put up. Although of course we have an increasing population and increasing demand, but if we don't do energy efficiency, then we will be needing more and more generation plants. Okay. This entails capital requirements, just like with renewable energy. So 4 trillion pesos from business as usual, and twice that, 8 trillion pesos coming from off-balance sheet models. Here is where ESCOs, or energy service companies, and third-party developers come in. An ESCO, or energy service company, not only supplies the technology, but they can also help with financing, with the different models like payout of savings, shared savings, energy as a service, and others. So here's an example. ESCO project reduces annual electricity bill from 100 million to 75 million. So that's a previous electricity expense reduced to 75 million. And then for a time, the 20 million for 10 years will be used to pay for the retrofit to the ESCOs. And then at the end of the 10 years, all the savings will be enjoyed by the facility owner. So, now that we know what energy efficiency can do for us, the next question is what are the EA technologies and solutions out there? Here are examples of actual retrofits that have been done and the savings achieved. Some of these slides came from Ray Marquez, who got them from BPI. Okay. So here, retrofitting your old chiller to newer chillers can give you this much, 30 to 50%, and payback is normally less than 5 years. Here shows the use of high efficiency motors can give you a payback of less than 3 years. And motor drives also payback of less than 2 years. Here are more case studies, but now I'd like to focus or discuss something a bit technical, but I know is interesting, as this consumes the most energy in any commercial building or residential or in our houses, the air conditioning. Air conditioning in reality is not the introduction of cool air, as we think this, but the removal of heat and moisture. So from the Carrier website, how do air conditioners work? An air conditioner cools your home or office or any enclosed space by removing heat and humidity from the indoor air. It then returns the cooled air indoors while transferring the unwanted heat and humidity outside. So there are two kinds of, something new to learn. Two kinds of heat, sensible and latent. Sensible heat is the energy involved in increasing or decreasing the temperature of a substance like air without changing its phase, no melting or evaporation. When you heat or cool air, you add or remove sensible heat. The temperature you read with a thermometer is a measure of the sensible heat content. Latent heat or hidden heat is the energy involved in changing the phase of a substance without changing its temperature, like most relevantly for air with water. Why am I telling you this? In a humid climate like ours, the biggest job of the AC or air conditioner is to pull moisture out of the air indoors. It takes a lot of energy for water vapor in the air to condense to liquid form, which is the condensate that goes out the drain. To illustrate simply for room with the type air conditioner, you will see that there's water dripping outside. It's because the humidity inside the room, which is water vapor, is condensed. That's how heat is transferred from inside to the outside. Okay. Majority of the energy spent by AC goes to addressing moisture or humidity. So if your AC can bring down the temperature but not pull out moisture, then it's not working as it should. The air conditioning system should first provide the ideal temperature and humidity. If it does so with less energy, then that's the time we call it energy efficient. Why is humidity or relative humidity important? It's because you don't want to get that sticky, muggy feeling, and if the relative humidity inside is high, it will. That's a time when dust mites multiply, molds multiply, which can make you sick. Now, there are many kinds of AC systems. With respect to how they expel the unwanted heat, there's the air-cooled and the water-cooled system. So, a little, again, explanation. Warm air is drawn into the AC system. Heat from this air is transferred to the freon or refrigerant. The refrigerant then goes to the condenser and expels this heat so that when it goes back indoors, it can absorb heat again from inside, repeating the cycle. So, air-cooled systems rely on ambient air. Our ambient air reaches what? 30 plus? There's like 40 plus. So imagine that's the one cooling your refrigerant. How can that be efficient? Whereas water-cooled system, aside from the part of their air conditioning system, you need to put a cooling tower. It's an extra cost, yes, in the beginning, but you will now have water as the form of medium that expels that, takes that unwanted heat from the system, and is much more efficient. Okay, so sorry again, but this is the scientific explanation. So, in short, you see, enthalpy is like the measurement of energy in a thermodynamic system. So, you see the x-axis, the red 2 to 0.3, that's the compression, that's the work of the compressor. Yung compressor, yun yung majority ng konsumo ng power ng aircon. So, the 2 to 3, you see the 0.3 is further down the enthalpy axis, meaning it takes more energy. So, kailangan we have to go to that state 3 for the expelling of unwanted heat to happen. Whereas dun sa blue diagram, which is for the water cooled, yung 2' to 3', it's only up to there. So it's lesser work for your compressor. And then there's also the refrigerating effect dun sa 1 to 2 portion. Water cooled refrigerating effect is longer. So, in a nutshell, water-cooled AC system has lower refrigerant condensing temperature and therefore lower condensing pressure. This means the compressor needs to do less work, thus consumes less energy. So, but unfortunately for our homes, our split types are only air-cooled. Wala namang water-cooled na split type. Normally, water-cooled are for mga larger systems for commercial and industrial. So, one more thing, water-cooled systems last longer. So this is for those of you who are facility managers for commercial buildings, industrial buildings. Although, they last longer because the machine is inside the machine room. So, ano siya, protected from the harsh elements. Although water-cooled systems require more maintenance, like water treatment and makeup water, the energy savings outweigh the added cost. Water is way cheaper than electricity. So here is actual retrofit. So the EE Measure AC retrofit from air-cooled to water-cooled system. They achieved annual savings of 25.8 million pesos. This is a factory in Tarlac. They make wiring harnesses. It's a Japanese company. So included in the annual savings is the increase in workers' productivity because they were more comfortable in their working environment and the machines had lesser downtime. So payback was just 4 years and 6 months. In this project, they put centralized BMS and energy management systems. And you see the payback period is just 1 to 1.5 years. In PE2, we have lots of members doing this, energy monitoring and BMS. This one also another AC retrofit. This time, the retrofit entailed making the system less or a bit decentralized, less distributed cooling system. They achieved 33% savings, and the payback was just 3 years and 4 months. And here are other examples. So employing high efficient motors, payback just less than a year. This one, condensate recovery and water recycling. Part of energy efficiency would be that recovering waste heat and using it again for other processes. And then this one, compressed air system efficiency improvement. Again, payback is just a little below 4 years. So, to those of you in the commercial and industrial sector, I appeal to you to initiate and study how you can make your facilities more efficient. High initial cost of more energy efficient equipment shouldn't be the only factor that you should consider, as this is just the tip of the iceberg. Electricity expense is the most significant component of life cycle cost, outweighing the acquisition cost of the installed equipment. I also call on government to continue leading by example. As individuals, think about the small actions we can take every day. Switching to LED lights, investing in energy efficient appliances, or simply setting the thermostat to 24 or 25 degrees can lead to significant savings. Did you know energy consumption of an air conditioner increases by 3 to 5% for each degree that the thermostat is set lower? So, in conclusion, energy efficiency is a win-win solution for everyone and goes hand in hand with RE and other drivers of our transition to clean energy. Whether we're talking about individuals, businesses, or governments, we can all benefit from using energy more wisely. All hope is not lost, and if we commit to making energy efficiency a priority today, we can enhance energy security and build a sustainable tomorrow if the world does so too. Thank you.